Good evening, ghouls and ghoulettes. Tonight is going to be an episode with all three of us spitting facts at you for the very first time. So please send us feedback as to whether or not we should keep episodes like this in the rotation, or if you'd prefer when we tackle cases solo. We do have one thing we've been meaning to discuss, but it got pushed to the back burner these past couple of weeks because we're forgetful dweebs sometimes. Bear with us. But the Menendez brothers might be eligible for parole, and the court date is set for December 11th. I'm personally not sure where I stand with them. I'm not sure if they actually were sexually assaulted as kids or if they weren't. The show that was recently released on Netflix did a really good job at showing both sides of the story, so that made it even more hard for me to know the facts versus what's not true. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
I don't know where I stand with it either. I'm kind of leaning both ways, but I don't know. I really don't. Because they're pretty good actors, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think they should be freed immediately. But to be fair, if you look at both, the fact that they were proven to be innocent of their crimes the first time around, that's why I'm like, and the sexual assault stuff was in that crime. But then the second time they got tried and they were found guilty, that's when they omitted that. So that's why I'm like, kind of on the fence. I don't know, but I do think they should be released.
Even after murdering their parents, you think they should be released?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't feel like they just killed them just to kill them. I mean, that...
Yeah, I mean, there's a motive, but still, like, don't kill someone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it's like, it goes into, like, too, if what they said is true, because, like I was saying before, it's like you never really know the actual true thing that happened because we weren't there. But, I mean, if the abuse part is true and it actually did start when they were young and that's all they ever knew, and if their mom truly did know that it was going on, I haven't been in that situation, so I don't know how I would personally react, but I don't know.
I suppose that would make you want to kill someone going through all that.
Especially being an older sibling myself, if I knew that someone was hurting my younger brother, and it was my parents, like that, knowing that, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
Honestly. It's hard to say because, I don't know, like I said, we weren't there with them to see exactly what was going on.
Right, yeah. No, that makes sense.
But if we look at it, I mean, they reported it to their cousin, who also testified, saying that she knew about it, and, you know, apparently the mom knew that it happened, and she walked in on it, and kind of just ignored it, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't... Okay, I guess I agree with... That would be a good reason to murder your parents. I don't think they should... My opinion should be freed. I mean... I don't... How long did they served so long? So far?
Well, yeah, I figured it happened when they were 18 and 21, and they're in their 50s now.
Okay, so like...
So they've been in it for a while.
20 years.
Yeah.
20, 30 years.
Well, if they were 20, 30, sorry.
Yeah. 30 years.
Who needs math?
I do.
But, yeah, I don't know. It's like one of those things, too. It's like, I understand why they should have to serve some time, because obviously, like you said, murder is not the first thing they should have went to. But at the end of the day, too, I don't think it's fair that for our other cases, for instance, these people got released after a couple months after, like, raping and
That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
doing stuff, and they only got a couple of
true.
weeks or a couple of months, and they got on good behavior, whereas they were sentenced originally with no possibility of parole whatsoever. I think that was a very harsh punishment, considering we've seen other people get off with much less for doing much worse.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on the parole part. They should have been granted parole because even though murder's wrong, it wasn't as severe as other cases, like you had just stated, how they got a parole and they didn't even serve, 10 years for it. So yeah, I agree with you on that. So that I feel they do have the they should be granted parole. I do agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
And then as we find out more, obviously, we'll touch this again, I imagine, in the future, and see where we're at. Maybe our opinions will all change.
Yeah, it's very true. Maybe something else will be brought up when, the court case happens. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens after all that and what comes of it. We have received a handful of case suggestions already, so thank you to everybody who has sent any our way so far. But if you have a good one for us to tackle that you haven't sent to us, please send it to us contact us at cheeseforthoughtpodcast.com. And if you'd like to see the posters that Drew has been creating prior to every episode we release, as well as a teaser trailer for the upcoming episode, please like and follow us on our socials at Cheese for Thought Podcast. We've also been toying with the idea of starting to talk about current true crime that's happening, as well as recent updates on older cases in our intro, which we're going to start doing next week. So please share your thoughts and opinions on that as well. And just email us contact us at Choose for Thought Podcast for that. And obviously, if it's not something the majority of you enjoy, we're not going to keep doing so. But as always, we're glad you're here with us and appreciate all you ghoulish hens and roosters. This is Maggie.
This is Drew.
And this is Ariel.
And you're listening to Disney Channel. I mean, Choose for Thought. All right, Ghoul Crew. Tonight, all three of us are going to be talking about Rodney Alcala, who is known as the dating game killer, and this case was recommended by a coworker of mine. Shout out to Bobby Joe. We hope you like it.
We love you, Bobby Joe. I don't know you, but I love you.
Bobby Joe.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's all I got. I don't know the slate, but Bobby Joe. All right.
All right. Alcala murdered at least 8 women and young girls, as well as sexually assaulted at least 2 girls back in the 1970s. However, his death toll is presumed to be as high as 130.
Do you believe that? Do you really believe that it's that high?
Well, some sources say 100, and then other sources say 130. So I'm going to go with what's even higher. So it's between there. I would
did he
imagine.
say that, or are they just speculating?
Detectives.
Yeah, I think detectives were thinking that he was linked to more crimes. So I mean, I would believe it. Why not?
Can you imagine 120 people? That's a lot of people.
That is 130.
Sorry,
That's a
130.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Man, you got some time on your hands.
That's a lot, yeah.
Holy fuck.
Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Bucor was born on August 23rd, 1943 in San Antonio, Texas. His father, Raul Alcala Bucor, abandoned the family when Rodney was young. His mother, Anna Maria Gutierrez, I cannot roll my R's, so I apologize, took Rodney and his sisters, Christine and Marie, place to place. They moved from San Antonio, Texas, to Mexico, and then from Mexico to Los Angeles, all by the time Rodney was 11. So whenever he made new friends, whenever he made new friends, he would have to leave them behind, which was a traumatic experience for him. Growing up, Alcala had everything he could have ever wanted, though. He attended private schools, and everyone who knew him as being kind, respectful, and highly intelligent. Rodney had every advantage he could in life. He had a mother who loved him dearly, an older brother, and 2 sisters that were very successful in life. When he was 17, he was enlisted in the U.S. Army and served 4 years as a clerk, and this is when his life took a turn for the worst. Now, I personally find it very interesting that all of my cases lately have served our country prior to their crimes. Even my next case, which is going to be next week, Robert Hansen, who is Alaska's most notorious serial killer, he served prior to all the sick, twisted stuff he did, too. So it's very interesting how that
I think a lot of
connects.
them went into the military because they didn't know what they were doing with their life. So that was like a easier way to try to give them purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or some of the people that know they had an issue, maybe they joined to kind of like fit in or something, to kind of take away from their
Yeah, I
thoughts or
could see
something.
that,
I
yeah.
could see that happening too.
Yeah, isn't it interesting, though? Like, they all have that in common,
Yeah.
which is very strange. So after Rodney suffered from a nervous breakdown, he was medically discharged from the U.S. Army because the military psychiatrist diagnosed him with antisocial personality disorder. He attended California State University and later transferred to the University of California, Los Angeles. And in 1968, Rodney graduated from UCLA with a bachelor's degree in fine arts and then later studied film at New York University under the name John Berger in 1971 with Roman Polanski.
What did it ever say why he changed his name? Was he's trying to have like an arts name?
Do you talk about this later?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, that comes
All
up to
right.
mind.
Sorry.
Okay.
No,
Shut
it's
up.
fine.
So during his time in New York, he assaulted a girl with a bottle of Coke, and she ultimately was lucky enough to escape him.
Like a bottle of Coke?
Yeah, like
he
just like
hit her in the back of the
Coca-Cola.
head.
Yeah, like he hit her with it? Oh,
Yep.
okay. I thought he like sexually assaulted her with a
No.
bottle of Coca-Cola.
No, he just came up from behind her and hit her over the head with a Coca-Cola bottle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she survived and she got up and ran.
Yeah, she got away.
Good
thank
for her.
God. So Alcala didn't complete his studies when he was a student of Polanski, even though he was brilliant and more than capable of it. Rodney always felt that his mentors and other people in his life didn't truly understand him and his art. So Alcala decided he'd essentially force people into his way of thinking of art by making the human body a piece of it. This way, his art might actually be convincing to others. So he used his talent of photography as a tool to recruit his victims. So now Ariel's going to talk about, I think there's 11 victims of him. Okay. So
My art sucks.
take it away,
so-
Ariel.
So I did want to say one more thing on kind of what you said too. I do find it interesting that he actually had a pretty normal childhood, considering all the ones that you've covered. All these people have weird stuff
Right.
happening to his kids. Either they were abused or I don't know, like bullied or something happened. But he had a pretty normal childhood and still turned out to be really weird. So I just thought that was kind of interesting too.
Right. And like you said, his brother was in the army because he's older than him, and his sibling, his other two sisters. But yeah, he had his life together. Yeah, it's pretty
His mom
crazy.
didn't abuse him.
Yeah.
Nothing. And he had friends growing up. It's not like he was bullied or anything. I'm like,
Right.
I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing he said was because he moved around a lot and lost friends. But like, I don't think that's enough.
That's not
to,
a justifiable reason to
yeah,
do what he did.
Exactly.
So, yeah, leading into that, Rodney was exactly what you expected. Tall, handsome, charming. These traits were exactly what got him on the dating TV show to begin with. But what he did before that show is completely unexplainable and horrendous, as we just said. So please listen with caution from this point on, because we are going to be talking about a sexual assault of minors. So Tally Shapiro was Rodney's first reported victim. Remember this. This will come back up.
Okay.
She was a mere 8 years old when this happened. She was in second grade on September 25th, 1968, when she was walking to school from Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles from the Chateau Marmont Hotel where her family was temporarily staying. Rodney pulled up to Tally and asked her if she needed a ride and to show her a beautiful picture. Tally had said no, she didn't want to talk to strangers nor accepted rides from them. Rodney didn't like this, so he kept trying and kept asking her to get in his car, and finally stated that he knew Tally's parents. So Tally didn't know if this were true or not. Her parents were involved in, they had a lot of house parties and stuff like that, had people coming and going, because they were in the music business. So Tally did not want to get into the car, but she was raised to respect her elders and was worried she would get in trouble if she didn't listen to him. So Rodney was very believable, so she had gotten into the car and he asked her, "What time do you start school?" She responded, and he realized he had plenty of time to take care of what he wanted.
Don't like this.
So he had took her back to his house. This is when Tally knew something bad was going to happen and wanted to run from the car. He told her he wanted her to come into his house to see a cool poster. So this is when a man named Donald Haynes saw Tally get into Rodney's car, and he thought this whole thing was really weird. So he tailed Rodney and watched him take Tally into his house. Donald immediately phoned the police and reported this whole situation, which, thank God.
Yeah, good thing he was a good Samaritan and realized this was fucking weird that this dude's picking up an 8-year-old
off the side of the street.
I'm glad he was at the right place at the right time.
Me too.
For her.
So Chris Camacho Jr. was the officer who received the call to come look into this possible kidnapping. So he rolled up to the location and requested immediate backup, as he realized this could be a tricky situation being only one guy. So he walked up to the door and he heard someone running around the apartment. He knocked on the door and Rodney peered through the curtains and responded, "Sorry, I was in the shower. I'll be right there." So Chris noticed that this guy was naked, but he wasn't wet from water. And that's when a horrible gut feeling kicked in. He told him that he immediately needed to come inside the door, and Rodney said, "Hang on a second, let me put some pants on." Well, this made Chris feel even worse, so he kicked the door down within 5 seconds. When he got in and had a look around the dining room and living room, he didn't see anything. But when he turned around, he saw Tally laying down in the kitchen area. There was blood, clothes, and coins all over the ground. Tally had a steel bar on her neck, probably weighing about 2 pounds. She was naked and covered in blood, and he had thought she was dead. She was obviously raped.
Ugh.
Yeah. So as I said, he had called for backup. His backup immediately started looking around for Rodney. Camacho stayed with Tally and eventually heard her gagging. So this was good news. She was alive. He tearfully stated in a recent interview that he couldn't just leave her there. He could have pursued Rodney and chased him, or he could have given Tally first aid that would save her life, and he chose to save her. The officer at the back of the... I'm sorry, what was that?
That was the right call.
I think so too. So the officer that was at the back of the house heard Chris screaming and misinterpreted the situation, so he came flying in through the front. They later discovered Rodney had fled through the back where the officer just was.
Oh, no.
Oh, so we got away.
Yep.
That sucks. Now this is where I don't know what all happened.
And it was a huge misinterpretation. He heard him screaming. He thought that meant he got him and he needed backup to hold him down. And so, yeah, totally misunderstanding the situation. But, you know, once you're hearing all the panic and screaming, you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Can't give that guy any fault. Like,
No.
he just doing what he thought was right.
Right. So when Tally got to the hospitals, the doctors told the police there was no chance she would be surviving with these injuries. In the meantime, the police went back to the house to find any sort of clues to figure out the identity of who could have done this. That's when they came across a student ID for UCLA photography department with the name Rodney Alcala on it. They had their guy ID'd. Tally was in a coma for 32 days.
Holy fuck, dude.
Yeah. She
Could
had
you
over
imagine?
27 stitches in the back of her head.
Like waking up and it's a different month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having 27 stitches in the back of your head.
Yeah, that's a lot of stitches.
That is.
And she's only 8.
Yeah.
Remember how small her head is at 8.
Yeah.
So she pulled through. Tally later interviewed stating that her family never spoke about what happened or mentioned it to her. They immediately left California and even the country. Her father moved her to Mexico to give her a better start and a safer life. It wasn't working out for her in California, obviously. The second she went back to school, all of her classmates looked at her like, quote, she wasn't supposed to be alive. So she felt like she couldn't fit in any longer.
Oh, that's sad.
Now that the police knew Rodney was a student at UCLA, they went and interviewed his professors. And here's the crazy thing. They all reported that the police had the wrong guy. There was no way that this was Rodney. Rodney was sweet, and he would never harm a fly. Wrong. Goes to show we really don't know the people as well as we think we do. Rodney was 25 at the time of this crime. And Tally and the police wanted nothing more to figure out why this, quote, nice guy would do this to Tally with no motive. It took 2 years to arrest Alcala for this crime. Shapiro's family would not let her testify at this, since there was no key witness. He pleaded guilty to child molestation and served 34 months in prison for this.
That's crap.
Wow.
That's like nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
Yep. So this goes back to what we were saying about the Menendez brothers. This guy was going to kill her. And he
Right.
raped her, and he
The
got
intent was
a little
there.
over 2 years. Great.
That's so fucked up.
So, I don't know if you guys remember where I said this was the first reported victim.
I do.
So, that's right. There was a victim even before Tally. Let's go back to 1965. Morgan Rowan was 13 years old at this time. She had met Rodney in a parking lot of a teenage nightclub. She thought Rodney was tall, cute, and charismatic. Rodney kept looking at her and smiling. She kept scratching his arm to get his attention, and when she wouldn't stop, he pulled her into the alley behind the club. She believed that Rodney must have slammed her head into the brick wall because when she became conscious again, Rodney had pushed an industrial dumpster onto her chest. She screamed for help, and the owner of the club and his wife instantly came out to help her. Unbelievably, this is not the last time she runs into Rodney. She sees him again.
Girl.
I know. She sees him again in 1968, 3 years later, the same year as Tally's crime. Morgan's family was getting ready to move to New York, so she was having a going-away party with her friends. Rodney was at this party. Morgan instantly felt creeped out seeing him. She sat in the back seat with her friends and was horrified when she saw Rodney get into the driver's seat.
Oh, God, could you fucking imagine?
No.
Like,
hell
knowing
no.
that dude did what he did, and all of a sudden now he's just appearing in the fucking, driver's seat?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's driving the vehicle, too?
Yeah, that she's in.
Ugh.
So, he drove them to his house at the time and gave them all marijuana. He used this distraction as a way to grab Morgan and get her into a bedroom.
Did he know it was her?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. What a loser.
He took his belt off and wrapped it around his fist. She was brave and said, "No, you cannot keep me here." He instantly punched her between her eyes as hard as he possibly could. Her head hit the wall, and she fell down but was still conscious. Rodney then took out a knife and cut the tie of her blouse around her neck. She felt blood flowing down her chest, thinking she was going to die. Rodney shoved his belt in her mouth so she couldn't breathe, punched her in the stomach, and bound her wrists with a necktie. He proceeded to cut the rest of her clothes off with the knife and began to rape her. Eventually, Morgan's friends would realize she was missing and would go pound on the door. Mike, one of Morgan's friends, would break the window to get into that bedroom. This is when Alcala would stand up, covered in blood, look at Mike, and say, "Take her." Morgan would run into the road with her friends and run into a couple driving down the road. The couple then drove them to safety.
This guy's an ass.
Yeah. Mike took Morgan to his neighbor, who was a nurse at the time, and rendered her first aid. She made it home minutes before her family was to leave for New York. She was traumatized and slept next to her parents' bed for months on the ground.
I would too.
But she never told them what happened and never reported this. I imagine she was absolutely terrified if she did. Her friends and her would get in trouble or be found by Rodney again, since he had already found her a second time.
Right. I'd be scared too.
A friend had later sent her a newspaper clipping of what happened to Tali, and Morgan instantly felt regret that she didn't report him and felt responsible for what had happened to Tali. So, we'll touch base on their story later on in this episode as the two of them come back up again.
Okay.
So, between 1971 and 1979, Rodney had killed 8 women in New York, California, and Wyoming. His first confirmed murder victim was 23-year-old TWA flight attendant Cornelia Crilly. In June 1971, he raped, bit, and strangled her in her Manhattan apartment. Leon Borstein was Cornelia's boyfriend at the time. He reported that she was beautiful and carried herself well. She was living with him temporarily while waiting for an apartment around the corner to move into with another flight attendant. So Cornelia had spent the day moving in. Bornstein came home from work and was shocked to find that her door was unlocked and no one was answering the phone. He phoned the police and they came and uncovered the scene. She was stripped naked and was strangled with a nylon stocking. There was a huge bite mark on her breast. Her cause of death was strangulation. And there was something in her mouth to keep her from screaming. There were almost 2,000 killings in New York in 1971. So investigators were having a tough time closing this case.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And they had no real leads, and the case went cold for 40 years. Rodney wasn't even a suspect at this time, because at this time he had already changed his name to John Berger and had moved.
Oh, and that's why. Yeah,
and he was working as a counselor at an arts and drama camp for young women.
So did he do it to not be found then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't. Yeah, I thought maybe.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, he did it as like a start over, start fresh. So no one, if someone had caught on, he had already changed his name by then. He was already 3 steps ahead.
Right.
So 2 girls from that camp went to their post office and saw Rodney's photo on the top 10 wanted list from the FBI, and they said, "Oh my God, it's Mr. Berger." So they had reported it to the dean, and he called authorities, and they arrested him. California police were excited about this because they wanted to charge him for the crime against Tali.
Right.
So this goes back to what I had said earlier. Since there was no key witness, Rodney took a plea deal. So, after the death of Cornelia, Rodney was free 3 years later and had no issues getting a job. He was hired by the Los Angeles Times to work as a typesetter. And, this is sick, he was also a wedding photographer.
That's creepy.
Oh, could you imagine having photos from your wedding that he took?
I know.
Oh my God, and you'd want to burn them, but you can't because it's like the most beautiful day of your entire life.
And here's the kicker too. So not only was he a wedding photographer, he was also a registered sex offender at this time because of what happened to Tali. But no one bothered to look into it, probably because of how charismatic he was. They probably never put two and two together that he was a sicko.
I wouldn't.
I'm happy they do background checks now for jobs.
Yeah, now they do. That
well,
wasn't a thing
I don't
then.
know if they do, like, for our wedding photographer, we didn't do a background check.
No, I'm talking
her.
about like an actual, like a you go apply.
Oh, you're saying to like an actual job. Gotcha.
But if they own their own company, there's
right.
You know, of course they're not going to hold it against themselves.
A lot of photographers are solo.
So 6 years later is when he killed Ellen Jane Hoover. Hoover. She was a 23-year-old music conductor who disappeared, leaving her Manhattan apartment. Ellen was the daughter of nightclub owner Herman Hoover. It is believed she was murdered during Rodney's first week back in New York City in 1977. Ellen was pressured at the time by a photographer for lunch, according to her cousin Sheila. When she finally did meet him for lunch, she never came back.
Not good.
A date book that belonged to Ellen said she had a meeting with John Berger that day. Ellen was the goddaughter of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh,
which is
wow.
kind of a fun fact. So
that's kind of cool.
So a year later, Ellen's remains were found on the Rockefeller Estate grounds in Westchester County, where Rodney was known to photograph women. After he had killed Ellen and Cornelia, Rodney moved west, going between California, Washington, and Wyoming. Law enforcement was able to put together that he was involved in 5 more murders in California and Wyoming between 1977 and 1979. On November 10th, 1977, Rodney murdered Jill Barcombe, who was only 18 years old. Jill was born to a Catholic family. Out of 10 brothers and sisters, she was lucky number 5.
That's a lot of brothers and sisters.
Yeah. She had beautiful long brown hair and a bright warm smile. She had a brother named Bruce, little brother. Bruce recalls that when he was 3 years old, he got in trouble for spitting spinach out at the dinner table. He was told to go stand in the corner as his punishment. Jill was 4 at the time, and she got up, stood next to him, and put her arm around him until his punishment was over.
Aw, what a good sister.
Mm-hmm. And it just goes to show what a sweet girl she was. When she was a teenager, she loved to sing, play trumpet, roller skate, and play disc jockey. She had recently moved to New York to California because she was an aspiring actress. She was only in California for roughly 3 weeks before she was murdered. She was found brutally assaulted with severe ligature marks, and her face was smashed in with a rock.
Oof.
She was strangled with the pants leg of a pair of jeans.
This dude really liked to strangle people, huh?
Yep, that's his thing. And her body was found shortly after on a dirt path near Mulholland Drive. And she was positioned after she was strangled. Weirdly enough, authorities originally thought she was a victim of the Hillside Strangler, who was also terrorizing LA at the time. And
there was a lot of them in the 70s.
Yeah, and here's the crazy thing. Jill's 15-year-old best friend, Judith Lynn Miller, was abducted and killed by the Hillside Strangler a month later after her. So that's why they thought maybe it was correlated. But it wasn't.
Okay.
She was killed by Rodney.
Okay.
So thus furthering their belief that she was killed by the Hillside Strangler as well, because he had killed her friend. So, roughly 30 days later in December, Rodney found his next victim, Georgia Wixon. She was only 27 years old, and she was a pediatric cancer nurse.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Because she's doing such good stuff with her life.
Georgia was the middle child of 3 kids. When their mother worked to take care of the family, her and her brother Michael took care of their little sister Anne. When Georgia was a teenager, she actually was hospitalized twice to remove tumors. The care that she received inspired her to become a nurse. And she wanted to take care of children. She was always very caring and wanted to always put others before herself. She had just moved into her new apartment. And her and her family were so proud of her and her new home and how good she was doing for herself. And she was found dead in this very apartment. This was also just a few days after FBI had interviewed Rodney on Ellen's death earlier that year. Georgia was last seen when she drove another nurse home from a bar. She didn't show up to work for the next day, causing a lot of immediate panic. Her coworkers reported her missing immediately. Police went to her house and saw signs of forced entry. She was sexually assaulted and tortured. She was posed naked on the floor, her skull was bashed in with a hammer, and her genitals were mutilated. Rodney had also strangled her to death with a pair of nylon stockings. So then we move on to the next victim. This one is probably going to be harder for you. It's the pregnant woman.
Yeah, this one. Well, in the movie on Netflix, what is it? Woman of the Hour?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one was hard. And they actually left a lot of this stuff out, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, they did.
Like, none of this is in that movie.
Well, hopefully we're all taking away something. So the photos that were found in Rodney's personal belongings helped link him to the death of Christine Ruth Thornton.
And this is the pregnant one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, she was a 28-year-old pregnant woman. She was 6 months pregnant at the time of her disappearance from her ranch in 1977.
That's really far along.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
In the movie, she didn't look anywhere near that.
Chris, she goes by Chris. That's why I'm going to keep saying Chris.
Okay.
Chris was described as a free spirit. She was heading to Montana with her boyfriend to pan for gold. She had huge news about her pregnancy, as many did not know yet. She had told her mother about the baby, and nothing else was heard since. Her sister Kathy immediately thought the worst, as her sister and her boyfriend had a really, really rocky relationship at this time. She was previously abused by him, so she had thought that maybe the boyfriend did something to her. Her remains were found 4 years later. Police believe that...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Police believe that Rodney killed her during the summer and got rid of her body in a remote area northeast of Granger in the rural southwest Wyoming. The remains were found by a local rancher in 1982. And they didn't know it was Christine until 2015.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's a big gap.
Yeah.
Yeah, a relative of Chris, who had been searching for her since she went missing in 1977, was looking through photographs that were released to the general public for Rodney's storage locker, and she recognized Chris's photo and immediately contacted the police. She submitted DNA, and it was a match to Christine's.
So that's great that she saw that.
Yeah, and that they got closure, because otherwise they would have never known
that
it was her. So then, in 1978, he murdered 32-year-old Charlotte Lamb. Charlotte was the fourth eldest in the family of 8 kids. She was originally from Ohio. She had long blonde hair, and everyone called her Shug. She painted and sang and made her own clothing even.
She was beautiful.
Yeah, she was.
Oh, so heartbreaking.
After she had graduated high school, she moved to LA with her boyfriend. On Charlotte's 32nd birthday, her sister kept trying to call her and got no answer. Her sister had no idea that 2 days prior, on June 24th, 1978, Charlotte's naked body was found in the laundry room in her apartment complex. She had been raped, strangled, and also mutilated. Her family didn't know that she was dead until weeks after it had already happened.
That's so sad.
And it was found that he often took victims' earrings as a trophy of his crime. So if they were wearing earrings at the time, he took them from them after he raped them.
No.
So,
that's not okay.
No, not at all. So then in 1978, this is when the dating game episode with Rodney happened. It was supposed to be just like any other episode that they had done. At the filming, host Jim Lange introduced 3 male contenders to Cheryl Bradshaw, who was sitting on the other side of the wall. The lights flickered onto Rodney Alcala, who had long hair and sunken-in eyes and a wide smile. The audience could see him, but Cheryl Bradshaw could not. He was described as, quote, Bachelor number 1 is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at age of 13, fully developed. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorbiking. Please welcome Rodney Alcala, end quote. If only skydiving and motorbiking was all this guy was up to.
Right.
Jim Lange, Cheryl Bradshaw, and the producers of the show had no idea that he was a serial killer, convicted rapist, or a sexual predator. So they had no clue when he came onto this. They never did a background check on him because that was not a common thing.
Yeah, it does not seem like a very common thing back in the 70s.
But I just wanted to say that because some people are like, why would they put Cheryl in danger and stuff? They had no clue that he had done any of this.
Right.
So Cheryl Bradshaw very well would have been his next victim on the list. I have
no doubt for sure.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't either.
for sure.
She decided at the end of the episode to not go on a date with him. She ended up telling the producer that he left her with a very weird vibe and just didn't feel comfortable with some of the stuff he was saying. Now, you may be wondering how he even landed on the show. Me too. So like I had said, talent backgrounds were basic and nearly impossible back then. Now, ironically enough, the husband and wife producing the show disagreed about hiring him.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so while he apparently was attractive and charming, Mike, the husband, was very uneasy about the situation and hiring him. He didn't like Rodney at all, and he said he gave him a weird vibe and didn't want him on the show. But they didn't really have anybody else. He was overruled, and they decided to go with Rodney.
That sucks.
So in the show, I'll give you an example of something weird that he said that set Cheryl off on a wrong tone here. Cheryl asks, "I'm serving you for dinner. What are you called and what do you look like?" And Rodney responds, "I'm the banana and I look good. Peel me." Just weird. A bizarre thing. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I don't know.
But she still picked him, not even seeing him.
Not even seeing him. But then after she saw him and got to talking to him, she's like, "Nope. I'm good. Backing out." So thank God she did.
Right.
So this brings us to 1979 when Rodney murdered 21-year-old Jill Parenteau. She was a computer programmer. She was so happy about moving out on her own. She had long brown hair and a great smile. She was smart, funny, but also could be really shy with people she didn't know well. She was out one night with her best friend Catherine Franco. Her and Catherine were out doing some shopping and went to a saloon called the Handlebar Saloon. That was a popular hangout place for Rodney. They met Rodney and talked with him, but he left little impression on them and they thought nothing of it. On June 13th, 1979, Jill's naked body was found inside her apartment. She too was raped and strangled. Jill's sister, Deidre Ann, said Rodney is a devil who does not belong on this earth during her sister's trial.
That's an understatement, but yes.
All right, so then this is another listener discretion, another minor involved. In 1979, he also killed Robin Samso. Robin was 12 years old when she was walking to ballet class in Huntington Beach when Alcala abducted, raped, and murdered her. Robin was Rodney's last confirmed murder victim. Robin's best friend Bridget Wilvert described Robin and said they just loved to have fun together and do cartwheels. Robin's other best friend was her mother, Marianne. Marianne describes Robin saying she was the most loving child a mother could ever have. Everything she did to please her. On June 20th, 1979, Robin was going to start her first day of work answering the phones at her ballet studio. But, of course, like any 12-year-old, she wanted to hang out with Bridget at the beach before going to work. Bridget says she remembers seeing a man with dark hair that was honing in on them. He asked them to take their picture, and Robin said sure. All of a sudden, Bridget's neighbor, Jackie Young, comes up and asks if everything's okay and who this guy is. Like any concerned neighbor talking to two children.
Right, exactly.
Rodney quickly lowered his camera and turned his head down. He was furious that she had messed up his shot, and he ran away. Robin and Bridget turned away to go back home. Robin packed up her stuff and told Bridget that she was going to get going. Bridget told Robin, "Hey, just take my bike and don't stop for anything." This was the last time anyone saw Robin.
Did she take the bike?
She did.
And she did stop.
Yep. For Robin.
Damn. Yeah.
So Robin's ballet teacher called her mother when she didn't show up for her lesson and for work that day. Her family called 911 right away, and the police interviewed Bridget because naturally Bridget was the last one to see her. Bridget told police it was that man who took our picture.
So creepy.
On July 2nd, 12 days after Bridget waved Robin off, a child's body was found. Robin's mother wanted to go see the body, and she knew it was her daughter. This is really hard. I'm sorry. She asked investigators, "What is wrong with you people? How many little girls with long blonde hair disappeared that it took you 3 days?" Investigators responded, there was no hair left on her.
Ooh.
Where did it go?
He just ripped it out.
A fire crew that was out doing routine fire prevention maintenance found Robin's body more than 40 miles from where she was last seen. There was 12 days for animals to get to Robin's body. She was just bones by the time she was found.
Wow.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. I actually have chills in my body.
The pressure was really on to find the killer of Robin. They released the police sketch that was done by Bridget's description. I will say I saw it. It does look identical to him, so she really did have a good drawing of him.
That's good.
So, I'll end it here on a more positive message. So remember how I said I'd come back to Morgan and Tali?
Yeah.
So Morgan saw reports of Tali and instantly felt bad about not reporting her attack, so she wrote this long, long letter apologizing to her, saying that she felt responsible for her attack and she felt horrible.
Aww.
So Tali responded back, letting her know it wasn't her fault and there was nothing to be sorry about. Upon receiving this letter, Morgan felt instant relief and healing, so she stopped blaming herself for what happened to Tully. And the two are actually very close friends now and talk all the time and actually meet up.
That's nice.
So a beautiful friendship blossomed from this horrific tragedy, but they can now lean on each other in dark times, especially since they're the only two that can even relate to each other.
Right.
Tully talks about how she's completely moved on with her life now and doesn't let this affect her happiness anymore. I really can't get over how brave and courageous both of these women are. I admire them deeply for their strength and determination to live their lives to the fullest. So on that note, I think we should pass it along here and get to know about Rodney's how we should get to how he got caught and how he ended up passing away.
Yeah.
All right. So Rodney Alcala got caught multiple times during his murder spree, but it eventually would take a decade to finally catch him. First time he got caught was in New York in 1971, as Ariel said. But he moved to New Hampshire. He was going by the name of John Berger and was working as a counselor, like, Ariel said. And the two campers had recognized Alcala in a photo most wanted list and the local post office, and they reported it to their dean, who would eventually call the cops. But Alcala would be caught for good in 1979 after the disappearance of Robin how'd you say it? Samso in Huntington Beach, California. It would actually be none other than Alcala's parole officer that would see a composite sketch and come to the conclusion that he knew the man in the sketch, none other than Rodney Alcala.
Oh, so that must be the one that I was talking about. Yeah, it was a good sketch, so I'm glad that they were able to find him pretty quick.
Police used the tip from the parole officer to track him down and arrest him on July 24th, 1979, and was charged with Samso's...
Yep.
Yeah, abduction and murder. Following his arrest, authorities found hundreds of photos of young boys, girls, and women in vulnerable positions, trophies from the victims he kept, and earrings belonging to Simone's mother in a storage locker in Seattle, Washington.
Were any of the victims that they tied him to male?
That's actually, that's funny you say that. I was actually going to say that, no. So that's why I thought it was interesting that he had young boys. And the photos that he's referring to as well. So when he said like vulnerable positions and stuff, they were in sexual positions.
Right.
So I definitely think that he had obviously he's a pedophile because he was abducting young girls, but I definitely feel like I think he was open to boys too. But he just never got around to doing it. But I do think he would have.
Yeah.
Had he had the chance because of the fact he had so many naked boys pictures.
Right.
Now,
I was thinking the same thing.
Now, the thing that I couldn't find is how he got those pictures of the boys. I don't know if he had printed them from, like a pornography thing, or if he knew someone that was in on it. I couldn't find an answer to that. So if anybody knows, let us know, because I'm curious about how he got the pictures of the boys.
Please send us an email,
Because no boys' murders or anything like that were ever linked to him. So maybe he did. Like he said, he could have up to 130. Maybe some of them were boys that aren't linked to him yet. So maybe he did.
Yeah.
Something to think about. Unfortunately, think about.
Yeah. In February 1980, Alcala went on trial for Samso's murder and was convicted and sentenced to death. The case was sadly overturned on appeal in 1984, with the California Supreme Court ruling that he received an unfair trial because jurors were informed of his prior sex crimes and attacks.
That's crap.
I think that's bullshit.
Yeah,
100%.
that's crap.
Yeah. He would receive a new trial in 1986 in which he was once more convicted and sentenced to death once again. But in 2001, on death row, Alcala would appeal yet again and won, putting a third trial into motion.
Yeah, see, and this is what I mean. How the hell does this guy get off?
Right.
All these people are linked that he raped them, molested them, strangled them, mutilated them, and yet here we go. Third time, he's still not dead. This is exactly what I meant. I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
Because the evidence is all there, but just because the juror was informed of his previous crimes,
it throws the whole thing out.
It throws
Which I think is bullshit. For as much as he did, and the fact that he was in 3 or 4 different states at this time, of course they're going to hear about it because it was everywhere. He was on the FBI's most wanted list. Of course, people are going to know about it.
Exactly.
I mean, basically, you'd have to be under a rock to not know.
And it
who this
ties
guy was.
into what he's doing still.
Exactly.
Well, the weird thing is, because I remember when I was on a juror, it wasn't for anything like this. It was for like a drug charge. But the judge had stated during the case saying this is your third offense. So if you get found guilty, you're going to prison.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they can talk about prior.
Yeah.
So why was it such a big thing?
Yeah.
Then, because obviously if it's your third account, you're gonna put 2 and 2 together. Like, okay, so he has 2 accounts of drug charges. This is his third account. Like, it's not hard to put 2 and 2 together. So why was it such a big thing back then to say his previous history? And I feel like a case that big, it's like the jurors should know.
And the thing is, too, with him changing his name to John Berger, too,
I
feel like in order for the jurors to even understand what the hell was even going on, they would have to know his past stuff to even understand what's even following.
Yeah.
So 100%. I just think that's just bullshit, in my opinion.
Prosecutor Matt Murphy took on the case in 2003, at which he had the jewelry found in Alcala's store locker re-examined for more DNA. Like, he persistently made it like, we need to go back to re-examine this to see if we can find any more DNA. And authorities found that some DNA matched that of 4 other women who been found dead or who had disappeared in the late 1970s, confirming that Alcala was the serial killer police had suspected him to be.
So he sealed his fate there, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm happy he was very persistent.
I'm happy that the guy was like, yeah, let's get on this.
Yeah.
Right. Let's test this jewelry again.
Which is weird, because you think they would have just tested all of it originally. Yeah.
Especially since it says they suspected him, so it's like, why not just clear that up right away?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? That's just like your case on Halloween of like there was a knife there. We have another suspect in custody who admitted to it, but we're not going to check his DNA or the knife that had DNA on it. Like, I don't know why the fuck they don't do that.
I feel like this is where they get lazy and they let shit slip between the cracks, and it comes back and bites them in the ass later on. And it keeps happening.
And why do they do that? I will never understand.
I don't know. And then meanwhile, we have this stuff going on with the Menendez brothers, which, I'm sorry, compared to this, like, I don't understand.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
That's true.
This is absolutely asinine.
Like, they're making such a big thing. Well, it's still a big thing.
It is
but
a big thing, yes.
They're like over-examining everything on the Menendez brothers on, like, the DNA, make sure the stories, multiple trials.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this, like, he appeals it once. They're just like, oh, okay, we're gonna let you appeal this. We'll do a new trial in 5 years or whatever.
Death row got off that. That's very hard to do.
Yeah,
very hard.
But yet they have all this hard evidence against this guy, but they're just gonna let him appeal.
It's basically they had a guarantee that he was the one that did this, and they're like, oh, well, you're on death row. I guess you can come off. It's fine, whatever.
Yeah,
especially in California. I don't know. That surprises me.
Yeah, I don't even think there is a death row in California anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I'm like,
is there one anywhere?
Texas.
In the States?
Yeah.
Oh, there is? Okay.
Texas is no, It's not common.
It's up to the state, too.
Not many states have it anymore, but there still are a lot of states down south that have it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So among these women whose DNA matched on evidence found in the storage locker was 19-year-old Jill Bacab, whose body was found in Los Angeles roadside in 1977 with her face mutilated and lingerie around her neck. Georgia Wixted, 27-year-old nurse whose body was found naked and brutalized in her Malibu, California home in 1977. Charlotte Lamb, who was body found strangulated and raped in an apartment complex miles away from her home in June of 1978. In June of 1978, months before Alcala appeared on the dating game. And final victim, Jill Peritoon, sorry if I butchered that, I apologize, 21-year-old college student who found raped and murdered in her bedroom in June of 1979. So thank God they finally have closure to those victims.
That's just this just really just like.
I was like, "Are you okay over there?"
It's hard like reading this, and it's like thinking that these people are so close to our age, and like to think this could happen to us, or even people that we know. I mean, my sister's 15, and it's just hard hearing it, and then just knowing that someone like this existed, and just preys on someone that's so vulnerable and just has no idea what they're doing. And it just goes back to, like, even the little girl, I mean, who was 12 years old, walking to ballet class for crying out loud. It's just like, what a sick, twisted, I don't know. It's just, I literally just cannot even comprehend that. I just can't.
What in these people's brains, like, makes them feel like this is okay to do? The science or the biology behind it is just so fascinating to me, because, like, what in their brain causes them to do this stuff?
Well, the thing is, too, is they say, like, with a lot of other cases that we've come across, they were either abused as children, sexually abused as children. He didn't have any of this. So what in the world
that's
got
what
his
I mean.
brain to click? I mean, it is fascinating, but it's also just, like, it's kind of scary, because you
it
really
is
can't
very
trust
scary.
anybody. I mean,
yeah.
The person that we run into at work tomorrow could be a serial killer.
Exactly.
I mean, who knows? I mean, we have no idea. He was so good at living these, I should say, 3 lives, because he had his own life, John Berger, and then his serial killer life. It's just, I don't know. It's just, and I don't like the fact that he's so good at hiding it. Like, his professors are like, nope, you have the wrong guy. It's like, they weren't even willing to even think. They're just like, no, you have the wrong guy. Absolutely not him. It's like,
that's like Ted Bundy. The first time he went on trial, the judge was like, "You'd be a great lawyer." Like, he was like praising him how well.
Yeah,
he
my
could,
next
like,
case is like this,
like how
too.
well he could defend himself.
He represents himself, you mean?
You know what? He might, but
or he was good at, like, hiding what he had
very
done.
good at hiding it, because he was like, he owned a
there's
local
like 4
business.
people that live in Alaska.
Yeah, so he owned his own business, and, like, everybody liked him, and they were actually, like, giving, like, false alibis for him, because there's, like, they were like, there's no way he could have done this.
So they were just like,
they were like,
yeah, okay.
They were like so wrapped up into, like, he's a
His
family
bullshit.
man, yeah, like, he's a great guy. You wouldn't do this stuff. You'll see next week. But yeah, it's very crazy how, like, someone as monstrous and scary as that can get away with actual murder,
and
because
people
they
lying to police for them.
right,
that's
because
insane.
they just come off as genuine and kind.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. Alcala.
It's scary, crazy.
Represented himself too.
Oh yeah, of course he did.
Yeah,
All the
of course he did.
Yeah.
Representing
Well, I think
themselves.
they do that so they can have total control of the case.
I don't know if I want to say he did, but I'm not sure. We'll clear it up next week.
Okay. Alcala was 66 years old when he was convicted for the women's murders and sentenced to death. Following a 2010 trial, which he represented himself, he would plead guilty to the New York murders of Caroline Creeley in 1977 and Ellen Hoover in 1978. He received 25 years to life in prison, though never served time because he was already in California custody.
See, once again, this guy gets another slap on the back.
Yep.
It's terrible.
He was also charged with the murder of Christine Thornton in the summer of 1977 in Wyoming, but authorities decided not to extradite him to Wyoming to trial due to his failing health.
Tough crap, do it anyway.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
If he
I
dies
agree.
along the way, then so be it. Saves us money.
Exactly.
Prosecutors opted not to extradite him to stand trial. At the 2010 trial, he apologized to Teo Sapporo for the very first time. He said, "I sincerely regret the harm I caused you, and I apologize for my discapable behavior."
Oh, fuck off. You're not sorry.
It's
You're
funny.
sorry you got caught.
Yeah,
It's funny you say that word for word. That's exactly what she said.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. Yep.
It's true.
and that took 50 years.
Oh,
ago.
yeah. And the fact that it took 50 years is
Yeah.
even more telling. That you don't give a fuck. You're just mad that you got caught or sad, whatever bullshit. You want to cry.
She didn't believe a word he said and truly thought he only apologized because he got caught.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's true. She's right.
She was a strong believer that he should have received the death penalty.
Yeah.
As we all are.
Karma's a bitch.
Mm-hmm. And yet he didn't.
Yeah. So Rodney Alcala would die at the age of 77 of unspecified natural causes at 1:43 a.m. on Saturday, July 24th, 2021, at the hospital in the community near Corcoran State Prison while awaiting his execution date. Yeah, I could not find what he died from. Like, they did not release it.
I was going to say, I mean, 77, too. If he was born in the 40s, I mean, he was in the army. He could have breathed in crap. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of toxins there.
Once again, we let this guy die of natural causes when he should have been killed by lethal injection or the chair many years prior.
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind. Complete dog shit.
That just happened with the toolbox killers.
Yeah. Yeah. Justice was never...
This makes me just as mad as that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All three of them should have been killed on the spot.
I feel like it's a very common theme that we're going to see in other cases
I know.
as
And
well.
it just gets me more and more and more pissed off.
Yes.
Each time
I'm
hearing
with
it.
you.
Because so many of these other people's deaths could have been prevented had they not keep leading these idiots out on good behavior. These people cannot be rehabilitated. He's a repeat offender. He's a multi-sexual offender. Your guys were multi-sexual offenders. They're clearly pedophiles. That's not going to change.
Yep.
Exactly. It's not.
Justice was never fully served, but the world is definitely a better place without him in it.
Hear, hear.
Yes.
Yep.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Clinkety clink clink clink.
And I'm relieved that he's dead.
Yeah, me too. I just fucked up that he got to pretty much live his whole life.
Yeah, he did.
I mean,
he got to live a full life.
Hopefully he was getting butt fucked to prison or something, though, or something, you know?
Well, who knows? If he was into guys, as they suspect with the little boys,
yeah, maybe he
probably
liked
enjoyed it. Who knows?
Damn it. I didn't think that through.
But he could have been in solitary confinement the entire time he was in prison, too. Knowing the fact that...
And that's not right. I think he should be with all the other inmates.
Yeah.
I agree.
He deserves whatever he should have had or would have had coming to him.
He needs to face what he did. And if they want to take care of him in prison, I am A-okay with that.
Yep.
Yep.
Do what the public can't.
We're a roller coaster of emotions this whole thing took us through here. I went from, like, obviously, even, I wrote this, and I'm like, okay, I think I'll be fine. I mean, I was crying while I wrote it, because it's devastating. Then you hear it back, and it's like, you just get in your head, and then it's like, then you hear that there's literally nothing good that came out of this, because he lived a full life, longer than any of these people that he killed would have had. He took everything from them. They didn't even have a chance. I mean, it's just sick.
Yeah. The way that he did it, too, was so fucked up.
The way you're feeling is exactly how I felt with the toolbox killers. It fucked me up. And then reliving it, like talking about it last week, ugh, was terrible.
And the crazy thing is, I'm just going to touch this too, because I forgot to mention this like 2 seconds ago. The fact that he died in 2021, which was, 3 years ago?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I never even heard of this guy till the Netflix show came out.
Me too.
Same here. I didn't even know who he was.
Who the hell this guy even was. And the
I
fact
didn't
that
either.
he killed people across 5 states, where the hell was all this reporting and stuff? I don't remember hearing any of this.
Me neither.
Me either.
Even his court stuff, where he get, like, if he was in 2000, I'm trying to think how old we were in 2010. I guess we were in.
Well, we were in 10. In 2010, we were in.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking we were born in 2000. I was like, in 2010.
We were in 10th grade.
Yeah, my bad. So yeah,
you were a senior
I was
I don't remember hearing about this in high school.
I don't either.
Especially since we did current events and all that crap in social studies. You'd think this would have came up. Nothing. I don't remember a single thing about this.
Yeah, no, I don't as well. So.
And especially since he was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted, you think his ass would be everywhere.
Right, you
never
would.
seen a single thing.
Me neither.
Or even heard of John Berger. I've never heard of any of this. So it was definitely interesting to like kind of divulge into this, but also kind of freaky. What else is happening that we have no clue what's going on?
Right. Well, we're gonna dive into it. I'm sure. Yeah. Case after case to come. Oh, but this just crushes me.
Yes, and obviously that's what I want to say. Like, obviously all the victims' families, they still have brothers and sisters that are still alive. Their best friends are still alive. So our heart obviously goes out to you, and we're so terribly sorry for your loss. And we hope that this case is bringing justice back to their name and getting their stories out there. And I hope that each one of the females that he had murdered, raped, and all that they are resting peacefully. And that I do feel a lot better knowing that he's not here and cannot hurt another person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Yeah.
All right, I think that's it, right?
I think that's it, guys.
It for me. And then,
yeah, so come back next week and we'll discuss Robert Hansen. And
it sounds like he's equally as screwy.
He's a sicko.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about him.
He targets prostitutes.
Oh, God.
So he preys on the vulnerable and the people that unfortunately society looked down on at this point in time.
We still do.
Yeah, so he's a monster. We'll talk about him next week, but I think that's all for tonight, guys. We're glad you're here and listen to us. We hope you keep listening.
Another shout out to Bob Joe. I still love you, girl.
Yep, I love her too. She's an OG. All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.